Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Lorraine. My nickname is Rainey. You can call me Rainey. This video is the second in a series that I'm going to be doing to finish these little cloud studies. So on the previous video I posted, it was a quick and easy demonstration of how to paint certain kinds of clouds. And in this video, I'm going to tackle finishing the one in the top right corner that you're seeing here. This is a recap from the previous video where I'm trying to paint some storm clouds. I mixed a gray. I typically will mix a gray instead of using black and water. You can also use a Payne's gray, which I do believe I mixed some Payne's gray into this mixture of ultramarine and burnt sienna. I can see now that I got it a little too dark in the corner, so we're gonna tackle that issue when we start, when we get back in and begin to finish this painting. So I blotted and I, painted and I lifted. I also actually put some gouache in this piece. Gouache is an opaque white, so I mixed that. I lost a little bit of the light, dramatic clouds, and so I tried to go back and recapture it by using some gouache. I try not to, but if you have to, by all means, go use the opaque gouache or Chinese white. So we're finishing up this little storm cloud demo, and here are all four of the quick and easy cloud studies that I completed in the last video. And so I'm assigning what little landscape I'm going to put on each one, and I'm tackling the storm clouds first. So you can see it's mostly the clouds are the dramatic part, and so I don't want to take away from that by creating a complex foreground. So it's just going to be the tops of those pines and perhaps the top of that one tree on the left side, we'll see. So I started with a very wet, flat brush, and I'm gently going over the surface of the paper with clear water. You want to be careful. Sometimes the paint, your first layer of paint will sit on top of the tooth of the paper, and if I went at it with a vengeance and really went sweeping back and forth with my brush, I would end up lifting off some of those grays. Now, the lifting off is a technique you can use if you do get it too dark, like I did get way too dark in the top corner. So now I want my evergreens to be very dark, and the sky is so dark I'm having a little trouble getting a contrast. Here I have the water. The water is still on the paper. You can see the paper is still very wet. You can see it's shiny. And I'm doing a little test. Okay, I've got my paint and I'm just touching the paper where my first tree is going to be. And if it spreads too much, then I'm not going to have a lot of control in order to make those tree shapes. I don't want the paint to explode on the paper. And so I've got to wait until the shine comes off of the paper. So while I wait, I decided I was going to try to do a little lifting of that very dark corner. And so I've got a brush that's got a little bit of, it's a stiff bristled brush. And so I have it wet with clean water, and giving it a little scrub. You don't want to scrub too diligently because you will ruin the surface of the paper, and then in those areas of your painting, the paint will always take a little bit differently. So I try to be gentle. I do use this, technique of lifting quite often in certain areas. So it's just something you want to do gently. But that's the thing about watercolor. There is some flexibility once you apply your first layer of paint, but you can see I can only lift off so much because these colors are called staining colors. they stain the paper. And while I can lift off some, I can't lift off everything. And so the lift off that I just did, it did give a little bit, to become a little bit lighter. And so my tree value is able to be darker. So that was a bit of success. So my goal is to get those evergreens very dark so that you can see the contrast against that stormy sky. The color that I used to mix for my evergreen burnt sienna, I mixed it with sap green, and then I mixed it also with some ultramarine because I wanted it very, very dark. Eventually I did add a little bit of phthalo or peacock blue. It's like a turquoisey blue, but I still made it lean more toward the green and not toward the turquoise. I just wanted it very, very dark. You can see there on the bottom, that's where I did add a little bit of that peacock blue to the burnt sienna ultramarine. So it's a little bit of a quite a mixture of colors to get that dark, dark color. I don't want to use black because honestly, in the photo reference, it almost looks like the trees are black, but they're a dark, dark green, not a black. So I don't often use black. I do mix black with some other colors, but if I do need to use a dark color, I will typically mix it myself, or I'll mix something with the black. So black can have a very lifeless feeling. So here I'm just laying in some more trees. You can see that the paper is much drier. The paint's not exploding out of control on the top there. I'm able to get that shape of that little evergreen. And so I'm just going to keep trying to work it. This video is sped up. The first portion of it was sped up, I think, 4 times. And this piece of it is sped up at least 2 times. So you're watching more of a time lapse. I'd say the whole study to start to finish probably took about 45 minutes. Part of that is actually time where you have to wait for the paper to dry and before you move to the next phase. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges with watercolor. There's a timing issue, and if you move too quickly, you know, if I had started those trees very early before the paper was sufficiently dry, my washes, my glazing second layer would have just exploded on the paper and diffused, and so you wouldn't have those beautiful sharp edge shapes that are the evergreens. And then I'm going back in with a smaller brush. I just want a little few of those branches to have a little more of a definition in their shape. So the nice thing about doing these little studies is you do learn a lot. Now, I don't know if I did this in my sketchbook, I may or may not have gone back to finish it, but because I had it on a piece of watercolor paper, I felt like I needed to finish it, because otherwise I've got this piece of paper that's just got clouds on it and there's nothing to be done. So at least if I finish it, I can mount it on note card stock and, you know, give it to someone as a gift, or I guess that's the only thing I can do with it. Well, you could put it in a little frame if it comes out sufficiently successfully. So, you know, it's I always, these days, I err on the side of finishing. Even if it's not what you like, it's not what you expected or hoped, you finished it and you learned something from it. And so every time you finish something, that's success. So here I decided, you can see on the photo, there's a little bit of that beautiful cerulean blue peeking through the clouds. And so I'm going to go pop some of that in. It just gives it a little more life. It shows you that while it's a stormy, cloudy day, the sun's trying to peek out. It's kind of symbolic about life. You know, we go through storms in our lives, and You know, eventually the sun will come out. Eventually the storm will pass, and we will have learned something as we've gone through it. So I do find that being creative is a lifeline for, you know, going through life's challenges. There was a time when if I was going through trials, I didn't run to the art, I ran away from it. And I did a lot of destructive things because I didn't have anything that made me feel settled and balanced, even in the midst of, you know, life's problems. So I would encourage you, if it's not painting or drawing, maybe you have some other outlet, gardening or, you know, knitting or crocheting or, you know, sewing. There's just so many ways to be creative. Planting a garden, I love digging in the dirt, and I'm not that great at it, but I get great joy from doing it. So I'm getting close to the end of this piece. I wasn't sure whether I was going to put the trees. There was one tree on the left-hand side, and I wasn't sure if I was going to include that. So I'm kind of pondering, am I going to include that? And so I know it's heavily weighted to the right, but I don't mind it. In some ways, I think it's nice that way. Of course, I can never leave it alone. You know I can't. So, and you know from the cover of this YouTube video that I, of course, had to put something over there. Now, I think I would have been better off leaving it at that. You know, that's the beautiful thing about videotaping your creative process, is you can see when it would have been beneficial to stop. You know, you can see there, the paper is still a little bit too wet, and so my tree shapes are not holding their shape. They're being diffused into the cloud behind, you know, that are supposed to be behind it. You can see right here, I'm pushing it, and yeah, that's always a challenge for me with watercolor. So there we go. I decided that the clouds behind the tree were still a little bit too dark, and so this is the gouache. So I took the gouache white and I mixed it with my gray on the palette, and then I decided to mix a little bit more and go up into the corner there and really try to lighten that. So I think it helps it by putting those beautiful light gray clouds in. So what I say is, you know, do what you need to do to get something you're satisfied with. And I think the only time white might be prohibited is if you want to compete at a very high level in one of these watercolor societies. For us backyard painters like me, we just do what looks good, what makes us feel satisfied with the ultimate product, and we're not going to play by some rules. We're breaking some rules, you and I. So I would love to hear from you if you have followed along and painted your own. I'd love to see it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. We're going to be tackling those other 3 cloud studies and bringing those to completion in the next videos. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a regular subscriber, come on board. So subscribe. I'm trying to be regular with my postings. And I encourage people to explore their creative voice. It has been an absolute godsend for me in my life. And that's one of the reasons why I'm committed to helping anyone who would like to learn. So we're coming toward the end, a little more gouache here and there. The big question too is when to stop, when to put the brush down and call it. And I'm getting very close, very close. But I hope that your creative journey is all that you hope it will be. And the one thing I wanted to emphasize is practice, 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 and give yourself permission to try things and to succeed and to fail sometimes. But when you learn something, that's a win. And when you pick up the brush the second time and the third time, you're going to get better and better each time. So I wanted to thank you for watching this video, and I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. Go be creative.